Adaptability and foresight are crucial for success. Today's program aims to empower leaders and teams to anticipate changes, to innovate, and to create a resilient and forward-thinking organization. Our topic today is the Vision Blueprint, building a future-ready company, and we're going to tap into the expertise of Dean Mercado, the CEO of Online Marketing Muscle. Dean, welcome to the program. It's great to have you today.
Always great to be with you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So, Dean, we're going to speak about the future a bit. I don't have a crystal ball and no way to tell what's going on, but what are you seeing out there with companies? Are they spending enough time and resources on planning for the future? What do you think?
Short answer, no. That's the short answer. We could end the podcast there and leave everybody hanging, but no, we'll kind of flesh that out just a little bit. I coach a lot, Jeff, and you've known that. And it's in bumping into really, really smart, intelligent entrepreneurs. It is one of the things that just always seems to get pushed to the back burner, fall through the cracks. And what ends up happening, right? What ends up happening, bottom line is whatever comes at them is the fire or the flavor of the day. And that's painful to watch, because a lot of companies are good entrepreneurs, good people, right intentions. However, it's like I threw them in a dinghy and put them in the middle of the ocean, and they're getting shoved and pushed around by the ocean and the waves. You can't have that in small business, especially if you don't call the shots for yourself, somebody else is going to call them for you. And the problem with that is they may not have the same desires and intentions that you have. Not a good thing. And whether that outside entity being anything from business partners you may have to employees of yours, right, to customers that you have, you can get shoved around very easily by other people's agenda, right? As well as, and this is a topic you and I, Jeff, have spoken quite a bit about lately, AI and other oncoming technologies like that. It's so easy to get wrapped up in what we call the flavor of the day, and you lose sight of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and following and sticking to the game plan, right? And that's a real recipe for disaster in a small business, because very easily can things get sidetracked, derailed, and expensive, right? Especially since there's things in business that we can't control.
Absolutely. Well, Dean, I know those watching, everyone's thinking about the future. If you have a company, you have to think about what's next week, next month, next year, next 5 or 10 years. I know you have some strategies that you want to share with us. What are those strategies to do that, to be a future-ready company, to think about the future? And then I'm going to think up a couple of stumper questions for you after you're done.
Sure, certainly. First and foremost, it is about establishing and living by a real solid vision for the company. Now, I define vision maybe a little bit differently than some people out there do. To me, a vision is really a three-part animal, where the first part of your vision is what we call your purpose. Why are you here? What's your why? Your why. Why are you taking up space, right, in your industry? If you're not crystal clear on why you're doing what you're doing, again, you're just putting yourself out there to get shoved around by others, right? When you're not clear on why you're doing it, most of us understand what we're doing, right? If I ask you, hey, Jeff, what do you do? Most people say, oh, I'm in this, or I clean houses, or I clean whatever, or I solve disaster problems, whatever it is. But that's not really getting clear on why you're doing that. So your purpose statement is that why statement. And a purpose statement is usually what I would say, just a couple of words, 4 to 7 words long. And a formula might be something like this. It might be an action word followed by your target market, who you're doing it for, followed by the outcome you're looking to create for them. So remember, in business, it's never about you. It's always about something bigger than you, right? I believe it was Rick Warren who wrote it in a book many years ago. I forget what the title of the book was, but I think it might have even been, but I remember I don't remember what the title was, but the first statement that he makes is something like, it's not about you. And I remember reading that probably about 15 years ago. And I'm like, wow, duh. It was like one of those duh moments. And yeah, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about something bigger than all of us. Getting clear on your why you're doing what you're doing, why are you taking up space in your industry. Very important that you're clear on that, because that gives you power when things aren't going so well, that you can pull from that, right? So that purpose statement, for example, in Online Marketing Muscle, our purpose statement is very simply energizing small business success. That's why we do what we do. We're all about bringing energy and life to small business, right? Now, if you were to create one for your company, think along that template I just gave you, the action word, followed by the target market, followed by the outcome, 4 to 7 words, very simple, right? Then the second big component of a vision that we look at is your mission, right? The mission is the what by when. It's like a big, hairy, audacious goal. The overarching, this is what we're doing, right? And this is what we expect to be the outcome of what we're doing, right? So you'll see people out there, as part of their mission statement, might be to feed 10,000 families, through our charitable organization by the end of the year. Okay, great mission, right? So a mission statement also has kind of a formula, and let me get that for you, because I think that'll be valuable to the audience. And this one, I would say, if you formatted something like this, like, we will accomplish X, whatever that is, right? By Y, whatever that is, by when, right? Because of Z, because of something. The difference between a mission statement and a goal is that because of. So it's what by when, and then followed by because of this, right? Because we need this to happen. The because is the motivator. It starts to tie in together toward that purpose statement a bit. So if you really want to get a team that's behind something bigger than you, it's critical to have these components laid out so that they understand, this is where we're going. This is why we're going that way. This is when we're expected to get there, right? This is what it's supposed to look like when we do get there, right? Otherwise, mostly you have a team that's going through the motions. They're just going through the motions. They're not really excited, driven by what's going on typically. And that's a very unfortunate place to be. So first two components of the three are purpose statement or your why. Then you got your mission, which is your what by when. Then we follow that up with the third and final component, which is your core values, right? And I look at the core values as the beginnings of the how. How are we going to carry ourselves? How are we going to go about accomplishing this? How do we want to behave? How do we want to be seen, right? How do we want to be judged? Because we will be judged out there, right? So understanding what your core values are, what you stand for, and what you stand against, right? Stand for or against. You got to be clear on those. So Online Marketing Muscle has its own set of core values. I myself, as an individual, have my own set of core values. For me, my personal core values are to love, to create, and to learn, in that order. Everything I do in my life has to do with those three values, and they align with those three values. And what happens when I find myself doing things that don't align with those, life is not the way I want it to be. Something feels off. And for most of us, we never take the time to really think about why something doesn't feel right. Most of the times because it doesn't align with your core values. Now, I know what some of the folks listening to this are thinking. Well, this is frou-frou. I heard all of this before, and I'm calling bull on it for all of you. And I'm telling you, I went through this with the schooling. I've got the master's degree. Back when I was getting my master's degree, I said the same thing. I said, that's all frou-frou, junk, garbage, baloney, whatever. What is that going to do? I'm just going to put my nose to the grindstone and I'm going to go get it. Yeah, well, that's all fun and great until you have to start adding team. And then what's motivating and inspiring them to line up behind you? What's motivating and inspiring certain clients from your target market to want to work with you and to look at you as the only obvious choice for them because they get you. They understand you. They resonate with you and not the other guy down the block. And then it becomes not about you charging less in a race to the bottom with price. It's about who's the best suited company to work with, right? So this is where a proper vision really starts to pull everything together. It's kind of that glue that makes a company unified in where it's going. And it makes getting there so much easier and so much faster and so much cheaper. And I'm telling you that from firsthand experience, right? I fought it too. I did for years until I started to get mentored by people who are playing a way bigger, better game than me. And I started to realize, why am I being so bullheaded? They're clearly telling me over and over that this makes the difference. Why you're not where you want to be has a lot to do with you don't know where you want to be. The biggest challenging question that I've had in dealing with coaching and dealing with entrepreneurs was asking them, what do you want? Try asking an entrepreneur, what do you want? Most of them can't answer it.
They want it all.
And yeah. Well, then what's all? Define all for me.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they're not getting it all because they haven't defined what that looks like. Mm-hmm. So if I said to you, Jeff, my goal is to go from where I'm sitting here in Greenville to where you're sitting, right? And I don't know which state you're in right now, but was it Ohio?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So if I want to go to your city in Ohio, right? Chances of me getting there are much higher because I specifically pointed out where we're going. We're going the starting point and then the ending point, right? And if I understand why that's important for me to get there, then it's going to be even more possible for me to actually achieve it. But if I leave it to chance, I've done it. It doesn't work. I could tell you that firsthand. I've coached lots of clients through this process. And once you get clear, it's amazing what starts to show up and what starts to open up in front of you. And things you can't see right now, and I can't say that in any real nice way. Most of us, we're so used to having strong shoulders. We throw the weight of the world on our shoulders and we try and drag it to the finish line. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And all we do know is that we end up getting very stressed. We end up with a business that we end up serving and not a business that serves us as the owners of that business, right? We become a slave to the grind, as we call it, and not a good place to be. And it's even more dangerous, right? When we talk about technologies coming down the pipe, things like AI, it is so easy to get distracted. But when you're clear on your vision, so if my vision had me going from Greenville to Ohio by this date, and my why was because I just needed to shake Jeff's hand so that we can do this thing we were going to do with this podcast together and do whatever my reason was, right? If it's strong enough to me in my heart where I feel that, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to make sure it happens, and I'm going to align everything we're doing around that, as opposed to allowing myself to get distracted by all this other stuff going on and everybody else's planning and their agendas, what they want for me, right? And my business.
There's a lot of noise out there, Dean, that gets in the way.
Insane. And you got to quiet it. You got to shut it down.
Well, I don't have a lot of questions about what you talked about because you covered it nicely. But one big one in my head is a business owner is busy. They've got the day-to-day stuff happening. It never stops. How do
Right.
you separate that and focus on this future you're talking about besides
Yeah.
cloning yourself? Clone
Great
you.
question. You know, I believe it was Stephen Covey in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, that as one of his habits talks about sharpening the saw. Right. And that's a little bit of my New York accent still with me here. The saw, you know, like a saw, like you're sawing something. Um, Bottom line with that principle is that if I was going to cut down a tree and I had an hour to do it, right? He talks about in that book that most people will just pick up the saw and start grinding away, not realizing that the saw is not sharp. And they sit there and they're breaking their rear end for an hour, and maybe they get it cut down in the hour's time, and maybe they don't. As opposed to what Stephen Covey says, he's like, I'd spend the first X amount of that time sharpening the saw, and then the last few minutes actually cutting it down because it'll cut like butter. You know, is essentially what he's saying. And that's what the vision statement is to me. If I spend that extra time up front and I sharpen the saw of the business and I clarify the vision and I clarify the mission and I re-engage and I reacquaint myself and my team with our core values and our purpose on why we're doing what we're doing and why it matters so much. It's going to be so much faster, easier to do it once we start putting our nose to the grindstone. And from my own personal firsthand experience, that's the way it's always played out for me. That it's like, you know what? Take a few steps back and do a little bit of thinking. Get quiet for a few minutes, right? Plan it out. You know, we run our business and we help our clients run all their businesses in 90-day sprints, right? Every 90 days, we're doing a massive planning. Every 90 days, right? And at the end of the 90 days, we're doing massive accountability. And all along the way, we have milestones set up to make sure that we're accomplishing what it is we set out to in that quarter. What happens to most companies, because we're grinding. By the end of the year, we really don't accomplish very much. When we actually step back and we clarify the vision and we put a real strategic plan in place to accomplish it, in our methodology, we accomplish 3 big things every single quarter. So by the end of the year, you've accomplished 12 enormous things that you probably wouldn't have accomplished in 12 years because you're so busy just grinding it. And it's like at some point, you're going to either A, burn out, right? Drive yourself into the ground. God forbid, I hope not. But I see it happening all the time, right? Or you're going to lose interest in the business because it's just too hard. It's too hard. And what ends up happening, right? Besides our failing health, right? And we're getting older. We can't kid ourselves, right? We're getting older. It gets harder to keep cranking forward with the same energy and same momentum, right? As we age, right? And why would we want a business that requires that anyway? Why would we want to take a step back, use a little bit of this, and make the whole damn thing easier from the get-go, right? So I would challenge all of you, do your quarterly planning, right? I say a half a day. That's all it's going to take you. 4 hours. Is what happens in that quarter worth 4 hours of your time? When you look at it that way, who's being ridiculous, me or the person not doing it at that point? Do yourself a favor. Just sit down for 4 hours and think it through. If you're not sure how to do that, get an accountability partner or get a coach who's done that before. Let them help you. There's lots of them out there, right? Grab a peer and declare each other accountability partners for free. Hey, you help me do some of my planning, I'll help you do some of yours, right? Just to help you think a little bit. And when we're doing that kind of planning, we look at things being in one of two camps. It's either a strategic initiative is either something that's moving us forward or a pain we're trying to remove. right? So something that's plaguing us, something that's just, if I just got rid of that, man, my life would be better. An example of a strategic initiative might be, we need a hiring process. We don't have a formal hiring process in our company. In this quarter that's coming up, we're going to create a hiring process, a formalized hiring process. That's as simple as it is. If you did that and then multiply that 12, so you have 12 things that big, your company's a different business in 1 year. 1 year, not 20 years. And trust me when I tell you this, my company now is 20 years old. I made, I think, every mistake known to man. I just did. And I consider myself a pretty smart guy, but that's how easy it is for even us smart people out there to get caught up in the stuff, the clutter, the bright, shiny objects, right? The things that distract, right? If AI is not one of your strategic initiatives going forward, then why are you doing it? Think about how you can apply AI, create a strategic initiative around that. Like you might say, okay, I'm going to, in quarter 3, I'm going to use AI to rewrite my whole nurturing sequence, marketing, right? So that when I get a new sign up to our mailing list, here's the next 20 emails that are going to go to them, right? Great strategic initiative. Most people probably don't have anything like that for their business. It's a great strategic initiative to pick up. Now, how would you figure that out? Well, if you don't take a minute to step back and think, right? And I know most of you listening to this are going to be capable, if not all of you, of doing that little bit of thinking. But if you don't take the time to help yourself, how could you ever, and dare you ever, expect somebody else to do it for you? That's the gauntlet I just threw down right there, right? I've fallen into it, you may have too, but it's how long you allow yourself to stay in it is the problem. Get out of it already, right? Start talking to people. Get out of that zone that's not serving you. Take the time to do what you need to do. Does that make sense? So they need to get on it, and they need to get on it now. And I would say at a minimum, those 4 hours a quarter.
Good advice, but you got to start somewhere. And what you just said is a great start. So find the time to do that planning.
Absolutely. Absolutely indeed.